Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown featuring myself leading the mighty and legendary White Dwarf of the Dowie forces here up against Jumpy JJ Jax, very cool name, and his Vampire Count forces. So let's hop in here, have a quick little look at the builds. So for our build, we're having a little bit of fun trying out some different units than we normally would use, but for the most part, it's going to be a relatively solid defensive force, as the Dowie often is. We have a ton of miners with blast and charges here in a secondary battle line, hiding behind some warriors of Dragonfire Pass, as well as a unit of Longbeards. So a nice sturdy front line, and then a ton of blast and charges to help clear through chaff as quickly as possible. In the centre pocket, we do have double Iron Drake Trollhammer torpedoes, one of which is the Skolder Guard, the Regiment of Renowned version, who do indeed fire steam and have this very cool red colour scheme. So hopefully these guys will be there to do some decent damage. They're more anti-infantry than kind of the big threats, but I thought they'd be a good fun addition to try out here. In the back lines, we do have a mighty flame cannon, and this is one of the matchups where I think a flame cannon is highly viable. I don't think it's much of a meme at all in this matchup, simply because of the ridiculous damage it can do to Graveguard, in particular the Sternsman. And then we also have some Giant Slayers mixed in with the Dragonback Slayers. Giant Slayers, trying them out as well in this build. Normally I just take the regular ones. These ones, they do pretty damn good weapon damage all round, anti-large, a little bit more expensive, but do come in with a pretty impressive weapon strength all round. We're lovely 30 versus large. So yeah, pretty fun build all round. For our hero core, we do have a Runesmith coming in with two of the runes, Rune of Wrath and Rune of Course, and Rune of Negation, as well as the Hammer of Crack Drazar, a really powerful item not enough players take. We also have Felix. He's going to be rolling dirty with Grombrindal, the White Dwarf, trying to make a new friendship. Looks like he's kind of ditched Gotrek here. He's going to be bringing his mighty sword to do that fire damage, which is particularly useful and helps him clear out the infantry. We also, of course, have Help in Hand, and Blood Oath is going to be healing up the White Dwarf, which is some pretty powerful stuff indeed. Dwarves with healing is very scary stuff. As for the White Dwarf, we are coming in with Flash Bomb, Foe Seeker, Grombrindal has no fear, and the Rune Helm of Zufbar, just to try and buff our leadership and keep our troops fighting. Now for my opponent here, across the sandy dunes, it's going to be coming in with Double Banshee, which is an interesting pick. They certainly have decent armor piercing, so they can try to snipe out characters, and dwarfs do lack magic damage for the most part, but luckily for me, the White Dwarf does indeed do magic. We have a ton of zombies dotted along the front line, backed up by the much more elite and hardcore Graveguard, who are certainly going to be the hammer here of this build, alongside 3 units of Crypt Horrors as well. So a pretty simple battle plan. You slam in with the zombies, they take the initial damage, blasting charges, all that pesky stuff. They tie down the dwarfs, and then the Graveguard and Crypt Horrors pile in on top to really do massive damage. We also have the Claw of Nagash here, which is going to be draining, terror-causing, big old pain in my butt, once again ethereal as well. And leading the charge, we do have Vlad von Karstein as he does a run forward here. And he's just very, very tanky overall with the Karstein ring. 90% damage resistance is pretty crazy for 30 seconds. He also have the Master of Beguilement there, minus 40 attack. And of course coming in with Cursier's Raised Dead, Gaze and Nagash, and Invocation Hex. A lot of kind of the standard stuff. And he is of course bringing Blood Drinker. We're actually going to be firing our first few flame cannon shots into the Banshee, and that's just simply because I didn't want to give up my position here. We're on a nice little kind of ridge here, so I don't want to kind of force myself forward. So I was going to be firing the first few shots into cheaper troops until the glorious Sternsmen do come into range here. Vlad is going for a full-on charge here, probably trying to waste some of the blasting charges of my miners if I'm not too careful. And unfortunately, I haven't taken these guys off fire at will, so I think we do waste like half a volley or something before kind of bringing it back. Skolder Guard are going to be unleashing some shots into Vlad, and he's going to take a load of blasting charges, doing some okay damage, as the flame cannon does turn its attention onto the Sternsman, and with just 2 volleys, down to about half health there, which is some really glorious stuff overall. So the zombie hordes are approaching. We are repositioning our Iron Drakes here to try and focus down the Crypt Horrors. They're going to pull us out of position slightly by falling back. And the Banshees are looping around to the outside as well, going to be trying to tie down Slayers as well as the Flame Cannon other units. Giant Slayers, however, are going to be pushing into the Crypt Horrors on the flanks, and the White Dwarf is trotting over to try and deal with this Banshee. Rune of Wrath and Rune has been popped, slowing this beast down, and a massive clobbering overhanded strike there does pretty massive damage to this Banshee, and she is not going to be having a good time at all. We even pop a smoke bomb to slow her down once more. In the front line, Iron Drakes have been compromised, but Dragonback Slayers are quick to react here, hopping on top of the Crypt Horrors and should be able to drag them down. Miners have used up their blasts and charges, mainly on zombies, just to try to slow them down. It looks like Felix and the Runesmith currently going toe-to-toe up against Vlad von Karstein. A scary proposition indeed. Felix has been hexed, so he's going to be trotting away with the Skolder Guard to try and get into a bit of a better position here. As Grombrindal does help finish off. I believe this is indeed the second Banshee now, maybe? Yeah, it looks like it. He's dealt with one, and he's quite happily chunking away at the second one here as well. Iron Drakes have managed to pull back and doing massive damage to the Crypt Horrors, but well played by my opponent. Going to be pushing forward with the Claw of Nagash and hopping on top of these guys to do some pretty decent damage, as Miners and Slayers are kind of holding back the front line. Not a good engagement for the Dragonbacks. They really need to be pulling back realistically. My opponent is chucking an absolute ton at the flame cannon here, but it's still managing to fire the Dwarven crew, just ignoring the Ethereal Banshee, which is hacking at them and continuing to fire into Graveguard, doing absolutely massive damage, as we do have a big hero fight coming down here with Felix and Grombrindal in the action. Grombrindal will be able to slay the Banshee incredibly quickly, and will certainly be able to go toe-to-toe with Vlad von Karstein as well. He's a mighty combatant indeed. Iron Drakes have started to flee. Grombrindal has no fear, has been popped though, just going to keep these Miners fighting in the front line, just holding back the tide, trying to allow me to deal with the hero core here. We have Giant Slayers as well, have been surrounded by some summoned zombies, but they're still clear through them before coming back to the main engagement. Flame Cannon is still firing, I believe, as the last of the Crypt Horrors do start to drag themselves out and away from the White Dwarf. It looks like Vlad as well, kind of getting a little bit stuck here and tied up by some of the hero characters. Crypt Horrors even considering jumping back to try and help out, as it looks like he is indeed struggling quite badly. Giant Slayers have forced their way over, trying to hunt down some of the last Crypt Horrors, when my opponent, very well played, pulls through his own troops up and around to try and focus on the Miners instead. A much better engagement for those guys. So we're going to be pulling back our Giant Slayers, trying to surround these last Crypt Horrors and Vlad von Karstein here. In the distance, you can see the Iron Drakes have rallied, as well as the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, trying to come back to the engagement. And the Skolder Guard are going to be doing some point-blank shots into the Crypt Horrors to help finish them off, as the White Dwarf slays the last of the mighty beasts there. It's like Felix having a whale of a time. I'm a big fan of Felix. I think if you're going up against him, the main thing you should do is target him before you target any of the other characters. He is just a manling, a lot squishier than someone like the White Dwarf. He's quite happily just chewing through zombies at this point. My opponent as well, not too fussed by the zombies dying, is going to be floating around trying to finish off my units, which have been separated from the main box. The Iron Drakes got the last few volleys into the Crypt Horrors, but are going to be finished off here. We do have some Dragonback Slayers just getting dragged down here by zombies and Graveguard. However, the Skolder Guard are standing with the Flame Cannon and firing, shooting into the Graveguard, getting some decent damage. Looks like the Flame Cannon is being blocked in by its own troops, but up to 154 kills so far. Yes, some of them have been zombies, but for the most part, he's been targeting down the Graveguard pretty effectively. Skolder Guard doing some nice damage here as well. Although we are kind of sacrificing them a little bit by charging all our heroes in. I really am trying to finish off the Claw of Nagash here, getting the White Dwarf in there with his magic damage. But Curse of Years has been popped on him. Going to be negating some of his damage out. But of course, he's still a mighty beast and can still go toe-to-toe and do some pretty decent damage. Bloody Daddy here is going in. That's such a weird way of calling it Bloody Daddy. Is going in here trying to slay some of the Slayers as well. Going down in a glorious Slayer fashion as they should. In the distance, it looks like some Skeleton Warriors are chasing off the Miners here. And we have a few more units dotting around. Skeleton Warriors, Dwarf Warriors, all kind of coming back to the fray. But the main fight is kind of what you see is what you get. Skolder Guard up to 50 kills now, going to hand-to-hand combat against a mixture of Graveguard and zombies, which means they're pretty much done for. They've done some okay damage. I don't think they're as useful as a regular unit of Warhammer torpedoes would have been here, but still, 50 kills certainly isn't terrible. Unfortunately for me, the Runesmith has been pushed off, and things are looking pretty bleak. Balance of power is now going not that heavily, but it is kind of etching in my opponent's favour here, as a lot of my units are kind of being dragged out, finished off by the Claw of Nagash, and our heroes are starting to struggle and be swarmed. However, Felix does pop his mighty Rune Fang there, and is going to be slaying Graveguard relatively comfortably here, whopping in an extra 40 melee attack and 32 bonus versus infantry. He becomes a real chaff clearer. Each swing is slaying undead foes, whilst Grombrindal, with help in hand, popped on him as well. is going toe-to-toe with Vlad. Rune of Ratharan being popped on him to stop him escaping. And the White Dwarf is doing pretty decent work here up against the Vladmeister himself. Lovely spinning attack animation. Vlad is certainly losing this duel, and with a flash bomb coming down as well, he's getting smashed to the ground here. The White Dwarf certainly taking no prisoners, doing absolutely massive damage, as Vlad does try to team up against Felix here, who is completely surrounded by undead foes, but years of travelling with Gotrek, I'm sure, has prepared him for this very moment, and each slice just slaying so many models. It's glorious to see. The Runesmith did come back to the fray and has managed to pop a Rune of Negation coming back, which is really going to help out in the last-ditch seconds of this battle here. Can see Graveguard returning in the distance, and they could be pretty key to turn this engagement around. Another -40 melee attack has been popped on the White Dwarf, meaning he's going to struggle quite heavily here. Vlad is coming in for the assassination attempt, but Felix is going strong, whacking Vlad to the ground and slaying him with the help of the White Dwarf there, the ultimate dream team. However, the Runesmith has been forced off, and balance of power is only just a tiny bit in my favour. But at this point, with the White Dwarf, who can of course do magic damage, he's going to be able to finish off the Claw of Nagash relatively comfortably once the debuff has been dispatched here. So I'm going to be using Felix just to clear up the Graveguard, as he of course is the anti-infantry specialist here, while the White Dwarf simply focuses down the Claw of Nagash, using that magic damage to his advantage to slay the ethereal contraption here. And where is he? Oh, he's actually underneath the horses right now, getting a good old look. And going in for a massive swing of his axe. Now it looks like the Claw of Nagash, down to just 500 health, is really starting to crumble here and not doing it too well. As Felix, hero of Empire and Dowie alike, is slaying Graveguard, while in the distance the ethereal horses do come crumbling down here. And it looks like it is going to be an unlikely victory for the forces of the Dowie there. An incredibly close game with some really fun units on both sides. Very well played to Jumpy JJ Jax. Was a super nice guy in chat as well. So if you ever do see him, obviously give him a big hello. And yeah, feel free to have some fun games up against him. So, for my build all round, was some pretty wild stuff coming in, with the Giant Slayers getting 200 kills, although a lot of those were up against zombies, so I'm not sure if that's a wholly, heroic Slayer death. My opponent did a good job as well of making me commit my Slayers onto the Crypt Horrors before pulling them back behind his own forces, and then dropping zombie summons and the like to kind of pin them down, so they couldn't get on their ideal targets, but still did some pretty decent damage. The Flame Cannon pretty much single-handedly killed the Sternsman. You can see they got 0 kills. I don't think they actually made it into combat. That's how much damage this thing did do. It did get a little bit mucked up at the end of some of my troops stacking on top of it, so it couldn't quite fulfill its full potential, but still a real MVP here alongside Grombrindal. Slayed both Banshees, helped kill Vlad, or did most of the damage to him at least, as well as finishing off the Claw of Nagash. That magic damage is so key in this matchup, and I really think the White Dwarf is a kind of almost a must pick at the moment up against the vampire counts. Anyway guys, hope you did enjoy. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. If you want to see your own replays up on the channel, feel free to join my Discord. There's a link in the description below, as well as other links to my Patreon and other ways you can support the channel. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.